Today we are talking with Nomadic Matt, and if you have been a traveler or an aspiring traveler, you probably know who Nomadic Matt is. He runs a massive blog. He's an author. Golly, what all does he do? I feel like he just does like this online empire of travel.
He's nomadic. He's been at it for 17 years, and his website's huge. You've probably seen his tips. He's coming out with a new book, a new revised book that he spent a long time making sure all the information was correct, which I guess you have to do when you make a book.
There's a lot of detail fact checking when you're a writer for especially travel stuff, because you want to make sure the prices are updated and the vendors are still active, all that kind of thing. But today we talk with him. We actually had the pleasure of meeting Nomadic Matt at TravelCon back in 2024. We actually spoke on the stage back to back. And so we kind of got a chance to be like, hey, hi, Matt, how are you? So this is not our first time to meet him, but we're talking about totally different stuff this time. We're talking about traveling on a budget.
Is that how the is that how the interaction went?
Hey,
like,
Matt.
hey, Matt, how are you?
Yeah, that's exactly how I was. I was that peppy. No, I actually don't remember at all. I just know that we passed each other because we like opened and then he was right after us. That's my memory. So anyway, today he is talking with us about budgeting tips and just sort of getting started. I mean, his book will share it all. It'll be coming out on March 25th, 2025. So by the time you guys are listening to this, it is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. But we're just going to dive in. And if you are, maybe you're a retiree and you have a large budget to travel, or you are a college kid wanting to travel, the conversation's for you. He's really just telling you how to find good deals and to begin that first step of travel.
But look, before we dive in, first we need to say, I'm Chris.
Oh yeah, I'm Sarah.
Sarah just went right into the conversation.
I did.
She
I do
was
that
like,
a lot.
This is what the episode, like, there's no fluff in this episode. It is just high, pure octane information. So with that said, this is what no one tells you. We're so happy that you're here. We love to talk about travel. We ourselves are traveling in our truck, but currently we're back in the studio, which is nice. It has AC, and we have our equipment back, which is super cool. But we're here. We would ask one favor of you. Can you just leave a review? Like, it would be nice to hear from you. We don't hear from anybody when we're on the road or when we're home in the studio. Nobody talks to us. This is our only form of communication. So please leave a review. It would mean the world to us. Go like us and subscribe on YouTube. And with that said, let's just go ahead and get into this conversation with Nomadic Matt. Matt, thanks again, man, for coming onto the show. We really appreciate it. And like, you're a legend in the travel industry, so it's an honor to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me on the podcast. Flattery will get you everywhere. So if you keep saying nice things about me, I'll come back.
Yeah. Right. So for people who may not know you, could you just introduce yourself, who you are, how you guys started in the travel industry, what you do, all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, I run a budget travel site called Nomadic Matt. And I started 17 years ago. I had quit my job to backpack around the world, and that was in 2006. So when I came back in 2008, I didn't like my corporate job. So I thought, what could I do instead? I don't know. Let's try to be a travel writer. I just wanted to make enough money to keep going. It was never like a goal to make this a career. I just needed something to keep me traveling. And one thing led to another, and here we are so many years later.
Yeah. So first step was the blog. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the blog, are you still blogging today? Because I know a lot of people think blogging's dead. We have a blog, but I personally love it. What do you think of it?
I don't think blogging's dead. I think it's where people don't interact with blogs the way they did 17 years ago, right? People don't comment. People aren't sharing the same way. They aren't saving the same way. That stuff really just happens on social media. That sort of community interaction or YouTube. Blogs these days are really just sort of a resource tool for people. So, they find it on search, or you share it on your social channels or your newsletter. It's sort of an information warehouse for your knowledge. And so it's not so much that it's dead, it's just, it's not the focus of the community.
For sure.
So like, when you first started and doing this, like, were you just writing like on the website just about your, like what was the focus like for you? Did you start out saying, oh, I want to make this a business, or were you just kind of writing your thoughts about your travels?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, the website was really just a, mattkepnes.com kind of thing where editors could find me. It was meant to be sort of like an online resume where I shared contact information and links to places I had written articles, and having a blog, as a way to write more content so people could see my work. I shared travel news. It was just sort of like there was like a weekly photo. It was very much like back like blogging was when you had Blogger and Zengas and it's just random thoughts and like, hey, today I went to the mall and blah 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 blah. Okay, see you tomorrow. And people would be like, oh, that's cool.
Those were the days.
Those-
Still sanctioned.
Man, times were simple back then. It was so
Yeah.
good. Like, do you? So when you were like posting online, were your friends like reaching out to you for travel advice, or I mean, like, or family? Like, I mean, what did that look like? Are you the guy that people text and be like, hey, I'm going to Athens tomorrow or wherever? Give me 5 places to go. Like, was it starting off that way as well?
I'm still that guy.
Yeah.
Every friend asks me about everything, and I'm like, I have a blog for a reason. Start there. No, I mean,
Yeah.
the goal was again, to make enough money to keep traveling. So I didn't really care if my friends read it because they weren't my audience. My audience was like basically editors to be like, hey, I've written stuff, hire me to write stuff, so that I can make enough money to spend another week in Thailand, kind of thing.
And how long did it take you to get to that point? Just out of curiosity. I mean, you backpacked for 2 years and you came home. Did you keep traveling? Was it just sort of like article by article to keep going, or what did that look like?
I came home because my sister was graduating college, so my parents really wanted me to be there. But I left again shortly after. I taught English in Asia during the first big trip I had. And so my boss said that if I came back, he would rehire me. And so my sister graduated in May, and by July, I was already in Europe.
Oh, wow.
But I used that time between like coming home in February to July to just build my website. I did, like I worked at like a job placement service to make some money. But I used that dead time to basically just build the website. And I went out, and then while I was trying to grow that, I was teaching in Asia. But by let's see, like end of 2009, early 2010, the website was making enough money where I could afford to quit my job and just focus on the website.
Amazing.
So let's just kind of go back to the beginning. How did you get into travel? I know you said you started by backpacking, but what excites you about traveling? Is it the food, the culture, the people? What is it that keeps you going?
All the above. The world is a puzzle, and traveling allows you to put more of the pieces together because you get to understand more of like how people interact, how cultures are. You more understand how people think. It gives you perspective.
And like when you're backpacking or when you were doing that, were you hopping from like a lot of places at the same time, or were you staying put in like one country for a long period of time? What did that look like?
It changes by country. Some places I would spend months in. Some places I'd get out real quick, and some places I was just there to do the list of things. When I went to Cambodia, I was there for like the first time like 3 weeks, and then I moved on. Whereas I ended up extending my stay in Thailand, because I lived there for like close to a year. I had planned like 2 months in Vietnam, but I didn't really love it, and so I only ended up spending like 3 weeks there. This was like at 2006. It was a lot different.
Yeah.
Whereas I fell in love with Amsterdam the first time I went, and I ended up 3 days turned into 2 months.
That's actually such an interesting. I don't hear a lot of people talk about that, about I hear a lot of people talking about falling in love with the place, but then not enjoying the place or not, having that same feeling about a certain place and you leave. I think that's something that we're struggling with right now.
We do sometimes. Yeah. We feel guilty because, a lot of places end up getting really hyped up. You're like, people tell you, oh, you're going to love this place. And you get there and you're like, it just doesn't quite resonate with you. And sometimes it may be like situational, like maybe something's happening there. Maybe it's something in your own personal life. It doesn't click. But we definitely have found that, we almost feel guilty for not loving every place we go, but we're also kind of giving ourselves freedom lately to understand that we're not going to love every place. Yeah. But I was going to ask you, do you ever repeat locations? Like you said, you didn't love Vietnam in 2006. Obviously, it's changed a lot, even just since 2006. Do you ever go back to those places to give it a second chance?
I think every place deserves a second chance. Because so much of whether or not you like a place is dependent on so many different factors that, if you get there and it just happens to, like, the weather, like, turns to rain, you're like, oh, that's a bummer. You don't meet anybody, or, like, you have one bad experience. Like, so many things can color, your perception of a place. Where, like, you could be there, we could be at Vietnam in the same time, follow the same route, and I will hate it and you will love it, simply because all these random factors that went into it. But I have not been back to Vietnam since then, but I would go back. I just haven't had the opportunity at the moment. But I do repeat. I mean, I've been to Australia 5 or 6 times, Japan
Wow.
7 times. I go to France like twice a year. So there's a lot of places I repeat, but I also try to visit new places as much as possible.
So can I ask, what inspires your itinerary now? Is it, you've traveled to so many places in the world, and you've got a pretty good grasp on the places that you really like. Is it people? Is it events? Like, what makes you decide, like, I'm going to hop on a plane and go to France twice a year? How do you decide that?
I love France. So
Okay. Do you travel with a community though? Like, I mean, do you find, I know you sort of started out as a solo traveler, but you mentioned meeting people along the way in Southeast Asia. Do you find yourself meeting up with other people around the world?
yeah, yeah. After traveling for so many years, I have a large global circle of friends. So some of them live in Paris. So when I'm there, I see them. Same with London. Or maybe I'll go someplace for the first time, and I will know somebody who lives there because of my previous travels. But for me, it's really like, what's a cheap flight? What time of year can I go? Like, I want to go to Oman this year, but I don't think I'll get to it simply because the way my year is turning out, the summer is probably the most likely time I can go, but I don't want to go to the Middle East when it's 120 degrees out. So
Yeah.
now or April would be a great time to go, but because I have this new book coming out, I'm kind of swamped.
Yeah.
And I could probably go in the fall, but I love spending the fall in New England because of all the leaves changing, and I want to do a big road trip. So there's a lot of my travels just really happen last minute based on where I can go and what deals I can find.
Okay. You just mentioned two different things I want to dive into. I want to dive into, I guess, the cheap flight thing, how you end up finding good deals traveling, because I know you started out on a very budget-based travels idea, with the backpacking. But you also mentioned your new book. And I think before we go any farther, could you just tell us about your new book?
Yeah, so it's called How to Travel the World on $75 a Day. And it's about how to travel on a budget. Sort of my bread and butter.
Yeah.
So it covers all the phases of travel. Thinking of how to go, how to find cheap flights, packing, all the saving for a trip, cutting your expenses, all the pre stuff, and then part two is like just general tips on saving money and getting off the beaten path, and then part three is sort of destination specific advice. So for us, what do you do in Australia? How much does it cost to go to Australia? How do you get around? How do you save? What do you do in New Zealand? What do you do in Southeast Asia? What do you do in Japan, Central America, South America, various parts of Europe, China, India? And so then at the end is sort of all my favorite resources, places to stay, companies I've used along in the years. But whether it's sort of 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, we all get on the same plane to Paris. We all look for the same, ways to save money in Southeast Asia. We're all looking for the best accommodation. So, the advice is good for anybody. It's just the budget, like the number is geared to someone doing a round the world trip.
$75 a day. Is that for 2025 or was that for 2012? Like, do you think that you could still travel, for $75 a day, like right now? Or do you feel like, inflation, all this other stuff, with travel, is it still, are you still able to do it affordably?
Well, the new book comes out in 2025 for 2025. So, it comes out in March 2025. So the numbers are for this year and years to come. The book, when it did come out in 2012, actually, the first edition, was $50 a day. And that lasted, until like 2017 or so. And then COVID happened. And now everything's more expensive. But that number does take into account, inflation. Obviously, it's a lot easier to travel for $75 a day in a place like Thailand than it is, say, Paris. Sure. But again, that's why, it's how to travel the world on $75 a day because, you balance out destinations. But that said, you might not be able to go to Australia on 2 weeks for $75 a day unless you are like really strict on your budget. I mean, it is possible to do. It's just going to, the longer you are somewhere and the slower you're moving, the easier it is to travel on a budget. But that said, the chapter on Australia will definitely help you save money because it will teach you like where to go for deals, even if you're on a short trip.
All right. So I don't want to give away too many like secrets from your book. We want people to go buy the book and all that, but maybe just to start out, could you give us some practical advice for taking that first step of booking a flight or finding those deals? Because we do have a lot of people in our audience who are either new to traveling or aspiring travelers. We have a lot of like Gen Z millennials, especially on the podcast, who they really want to start traveling, but they are working on that very tight budget. So first trip, they're thinking about backpacking the world. How would you tell them to start researching?
There's deals that happen all the time. You just have to be flexible. I think, the more flexible you can be with when or where you're going, the more likely it is you'll find a deal. There might not be a cheap flight to Rome in July, but there might be one in September. So, start then. Use points and miles to, for that initial flight. There's a lot of budget airlines that fly. So sign up for deal newsletters like Going.com, Fairdrop, Thrifty Traveler, The Flight Deal. All these companies kind of search for deals that are going on. So if you're subscribed to their newsletter, you can see like last minute deals or maybe just like a sale that's happening for flights in September or October. But I also like going to google.com/flights and just typing in your home airport, hit everywhere, and look at their map. Because then you can scan around their map to see where the cheap flights are. So it might cost $800 to go to London, but only $500 to go to Oslo. So why not start in Oslo? Or it might only be $300 to go to Brazil. So start in Brazil. So
flexibility is key.
Yeah,
We've definitely learned that too. And traveling in the off season, which you kind of mentioned, like, you may not get a good deal to Rome in July, but you may in September. It's that shoulder season. And it all comes back to being flexible. That's been our biggest takeaway in traveling.
Yeah. Like you've mentioned short-term travel. But I feel like long-term travel is sort of like romanticized. You're always on the road. You're going to, like, it sounds so great. Is it ever tiring to you? Do you ever feel like in the middle of your travel, you're like, okay, I need to go home to New York and just rest and be in my own bed? Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, all the time. For me, my sweet spot now I've been backpacking the world, traveling, as a career, since 2008. Started backpacking in 2006. So I get tired a lot easier. It's the year-long trip of being on the road, I think, is a first-timer's game. After, whether, you're taking that first trip at 25, 35, or 45, you have all that energy. After a decade, you're like, I just want to go home. So my sweet spot is 6 weeks, and then I like to go back to my bed. But, I always tell people travel is a battery that needs to be recharged. For me, I can go home and then go back out. But if you are just nomadic, stay where you are. If you like a place and you're kind of burnt out, just stay there until you're ready to move on again. I regret going home so early in my travels. Like, I was in Australia, I was been gone for 18 months, and I was just like, I'm just tired. So I went home. And I was like, crap, I made a huge mistake. You're right. I should have just stayed and recharged my batteries and then continued on to New Zealand. I was like, I didn't realize that was an option, and I thought, like, you either travel or you stayed home. And then, realized later on, I could have just stayed in Brisbane where I was, and just, because I was actually dating a girl at the time. So, like, I should have stayed in Brisbane. Rather than just be like, well, like, I'm over traveling, I guess I have to go home. But, like, if you find the place you like, just stay there, recharge your battery, and then move on again. There's no there's no competition on the road. You are only measured against yourself. So, like, do what you want.
That's really good advice, especially in the world of social media. Like, we just got back last night. We rolled in around 10 or 11 p.m. from being gone for over 2 months. And that was sort of like just rolling into being home. Felt so good. Like, you almost feel guilty of just like, oh, thank goodness, my own bed. You can finally relax a little bit. But that's okay. Like, you're right. There's no race. There's no competition. It's just whatever you want and whatever works for you. But it does feel like with social media, people are always on the go, like, I feel like I can't keep up. I'm like, I must be getting too old to be doing this because I can't go at the same speed they're going.
Yeah. Do you feel like social media has changed the landscape of travel for, since you've been in it for 17 years doing this gig, and like, have you noticed a change when social media has entered the world of travel? Do you feel like it is more competition or more country counting, or what does that look like for you?
I don't really care, honestly, about what people do on social media related to travel for themselves. But I would definitely say that the rise of social media and influencers has made the consumer more do it for the gram. But then again, I also think about, every generation promotes a new generation. And so, like, when I was starting, it was like, everyone has a camera now and a blog. Back in my day, we just went and had a notebook, and then, everyone, so forth back. But I would say that, like, social media has directed people to a lot more narrow destinations. Like, people don't go sort of off the road as much as they used to, because it's like, I saw this on TikTok, let's go there. Whereas before social media, you didn't find anything online. You had to go see it, or someone had to tell you about it. And so you met someone in a hostel, and they'd be like, there's this great pizza place when you're in Naples, and you write it down and go try to find it. Whereas now, you just save a bunch of restaurants from TikTok, and that's where you go. So I think it's kind of ruined the art of discovery a little bit. But maybe that's just me being an old man, being like, back in my day,
Yeah.
Right. Same.
I would agree with you, though. I would agree with you on that, because
that we always struggle with the balance of researching enough so we're not feeling lost when we get to a place. We want to make the best use of our time and our money when we're somewhere. But also, I don't like to go on social media too much and do so much research that I'm spoiling the surprise. Like, I don't want to know what all the secrets of the place are. I want to stumble into that really great pizza place or something.
Kind of the wonder killer.
Yeah. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. Like, there's a lot of resources to make it easier and more affordable, but also takes away some of the
Yeah.
spontaneity.
Yeah, and I mean, and for us, we're driving. Like we drove to Panama, and we're able to take our time and go slow and discover weird places that aren't on, Instagram or popular by that. But a lot of people aren't afforded that, especially if they're working like a 9 to 5 and they get 2 weeks off or whatever, and they're flying into this city. So is there any way for those people to still have that like wonder or that art of discovery, even if they are traveling in a short period of time?
I mean, I get everyone's urge, to try to cram it all in. If you only get, a month for 2 weeks or a month vacation a year, you're probably not coming back, right? We have the luxury of like, I can we'll always come back to Paris multiple times, because our job is wherever our computer and we are. Whereas, someone else might be afforded that luxury. So that might be the only time in their life they're going to go to Panama. And so, of course, they want to see it all. So I get that. I think you'll have a more memorable trip if you just kind of pick a few things and then let the rest of the day plan in. But you might want to like I have a friend, she races around to see everything. There's no minute that's wasted. It's not like how I do it. And we don't travel well together for that. So like we don't travel often together. But that's just how she does it. I don't think that's how you should do it. But, again, going back to what we're just saying about everyone's trip is their own. So like all I can do is say, I think you get more out of your experience if you just let serendipity happen. But that's just my hot take.
I think that's our impression too, but we definitely we've seen other people like to do the fill every single moment of the day kind of thing.
Yeah, like we'll have friends who they schedule out their entire week like to the minute, and I'm just like we don't operate that. We can barely get up out of bed and
schedule the day.
Yeah, like we don't know what we're doing. So it stresses me out kind of.
But everybody's different, and we've definitely learned. Like you said, you have too, of who you travel well with. Like we have some people who are really great friends, but we would never travel well with them because they do want to have every single day planned out, and that stresses me out. I love the spontaneity of it. I love just the wandering around streets of finding new things and the surprise of it. So
how long did it take you to write this book? Like what does that process look like for you, especially traveling?
Well, I thought it would be just an easy update. What year are we in? So I started at the end of 2023, just thinking like, it won't be so much work, change some prices, delete some companies that have gone under during COVID, et cetera, et cetera. But it turned out to be a lot more substantial of a project because so much of travel has changed since the pandemic that I ended up writing about 80% of it.
Oh, wow.
So it's essentially really a new book. And even what I didn't rewrite, I restructured. Because then, you improve as a writer over time. So I'm like, oh, that's a terrible sentence. Let me reword it this way. It took really 5 months of me. I mean, it wasn't my only project at the time. I was running my business and, doing other things. So if I had probably just only did that, might have taken a lot less, but I have to, I had my team, like we were fact checking the whole book. We're making sure all these companies, like every price has to be, corrected and checked. And then I have to check, we have to double check it just to make sure that like it's, trust but verify. So it took about 5 solid months of work.
That's a lot.
And then, I send it off to the publisher. And then there's 3 months of edits, and then copy edits. So, and that is with having a book to work from. Of course I deleted again 80% of it, but I still use the same framework. So yeah, I mean a book can take up to a year or more depending on how fast of a writer you are.
And tell everybody where they can find it and what day it's officially released.
Yeah, so it comes out March 25th, 2025. So it should be out while you're listening to this.
Yeah.
And you can find it really anywhere books are sold: Amazon, Bookshop, online, Barnes and Noble, your local bookseller. Links on my website, nomadicmatt.com. Just it's on the homepage, so you can just look for the book title and go from there. But yeah, wherever you buy a book, it should be there.
Very
Very
cool.
cool. And we could personally vouch. We've used your resources many times, your
Yeah.
blog especially. So
Yeah.
highly recommend. Go check it out if you're looking forward to traveling the world and on a budget.
Yeah. One last question, Matt. Like, where's next?
I'm not sure. I have the book tour coming up. And then I don't know. There's a lot of potential stuff going on. I might be in Mexico. I might be going to Oman. I might be going to Paris. I don't know. It's going to be. I might be end up going to Korea too. So after this is all happening after the book tour, I think it's going to be like the day before. I'm like, all right, this is where I'm going. But summer 2025 in August, I will be going around Scandinavia. That's the only thing I have definitely confirmed.
Cool.
Awesome.
Amazing.
That will
Everything
be
else
amazing.
is TBD.
Oh, have so much fun
Yeah.
with that. We'll be following for
That's
sure.
that's a good place to be. Hey, Matt, thanks for like jumping on here and talking with us. We're excited to dive into the book, and it's an honor to have you here.
Well, thanks for having me. Again, flattery will get you everywhere. I appreciate all the kind words and the fact that the book and the blog have helped you in the past. So I hope the new edition helps you in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
Same.
Thanks for listening to What No One Tells You with Chris and Sarah. If you have a comment or question that you want answered on the air, be sure to send us a message to hello@chrisandsarah.com, or you can call or text our phone number at 423-825-9572. Thanks for listening.